Some people just can't wait for a Steam machine. What we have here is the standalone SteamOS console made by the guys at EmuDeck. You might remember EmuDeck as the go-to option for emulation on the Steam Deck. It's a simple, all-in-one solution for getting all of your emulators up and running with just a few clicks. It's gotten better and better over the years, branching out to Windows and even Android for a bit. Now they're trying their hand at physical hardware with this, the Playnix. And you know what? It achieves a lot of what EmuDeck achieved on other hardware. It's a very simple plug-and-play SteamOS machine. Just boot it up, log into your Steam account, and you're ready to play. Just like a regular console. It even has the EmuDeck installer waiting for you in the desktop mode. It is a very enticing option for a living room PC. Or you could just wait for a Steam machine. That's the whole video. You can leave now if you want. Some people are saying this will be better than a Steam machine. It has more power packed into its PS5-sized 3D printed case. But we don't really know how a Steam machine's gonna perform yet, do we? It's not out yet. So these comparisons are just a little bit silly. At its core, the Playnix is literally just a tiny custom PC with off-the-shelf parts that comes with a custom version of SteamOS shoved in there. And it's priced that way at $1,179. Now, if you think about this like a console, that sounds like a crazy price. But if you think about it like a custom mini PC in today's market, that really isn't a bad price for something that can get you over 130 frames per second in Cyberpunk. As long as you're cool with a 3D printed case. I do like the idea here. I do like EmuDeck branching out into hardware, and it does run games really well. I yearn for a plug-and-play solution for SteamOS, but the Steam machine is right around the corner. So even if this is more powerful, how much more worth it is the unofficial Steam machine, if at all? Hurry up. Oh, wow. No pictures! Oh, man. I have no service. This place has Wi-Fi, right? No. No. I guess maybe that one? Pretty fly for a Wi-Fi? You know what? Don't tell anybody. I'm just gonna use Surfshark. This video is sponsored by Surfshark. VPNs like Surfshark encrypt your data so that nobody on your network can see what you're doing, whether you're on public Wi-Fi, at home, learning at a museum. With Surfshark's cybersecurity features, you can feel safe using the internet wherever you are. People also use Surfshark to access content that might be blocked in their country. Hey, no ad reading in my museum! There's no risk to trying Surfshark, and they offer a free 30-day money-back guarantee. So go to surfshark.com/den and use code DEN to get an extra 4 months of Surfshark VPN. Pay for one tool, protect all aspects of your online life. Wow. The disembarkmentation of Versailles, wow. Hey, no picture! They're all taking pictures! Even the bald one! First of all, subscribe here. Second of all, go to youtube.com/BobWulff. Over there, we have a video on all the equipment we use to film these videos, if you've ever been curious about that. I was sent this Playnix console about 5 months ago. It was then pretty quickly put on hold. So they just gave me the go-ahead like a week ago to actually play with this thing. But now, even after all that, they've gotten a lot of press, and they're not too jazzed about getting more press. In the middle of writing this video, they already sold out of the next 2 batches, and they quietly rose the price by $40, so it's now $1,179. So if you're watching this and you want one, have some patience with them. I'm pretty sure it's just one guy. They're doing their best. You can pre-order the next batch, or you could just keep in touch with their socials and see what's happening. This device will ship with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, which is a little slower than the Steam machine's DDR5 RAM. It has a Radeon 9060 XT with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, whereas the Steam machine will only have 8 gigabytes. That's going to carry a lot of weight here. I think the Steam machine wins out on the CPU side with a more powerful, more efficient custom Zen 4 CPU. So in terms of pure graphics, on paper, the Playnix wins out here. I'm sure that the Steam machine will be more efficient and games will be better optimized specifically for the Steam machine. Even if the Steam machine is weaker, I'm not really sure how much weaker or how far behind it will be than the Playnix. All I have to go on is these vague hands-on that people did a couple of months ago. At 4K, those seem a decent amount behind the Playnix right now, but I don't know. We'll have to see. I previously speculated that the Steam machine will be $550. That was my gamble. With all the delays and the price hikes with everything else in the industry these days, it's looking like it's going to be closer to $800 or even $1,000. The Playnix is $1,179, which I think is proportional to the increased power you're getting if my speculations are correct. And that is actually a very reasonable price for all of the stuff that's packed in here. All of this off-the-shelf stuff would cost you probably more money if you went to the store and bought it yourself, and then you need a case. That being said, I still think the Steam machine will probably be a better value. This is unofficial hardware. The Steam machine is official hardware. It's probably going to be an easier sell even at a lower frame target. But again, it's not out yet. So who knows? I have to judge this thing by the merits of what it is right now. The Steam machine is not in front of me. It is slightly smaller than a PS5 Pro and slightly larger than an Xbox Series X. It is definitely console-sized. It is a great form factor. It comes with an 8-bit Do Ultimate controller, which is a great controller. This helps sell the console-like feel. I noticed this controller was taken out of the box already, and that's because the dongle that usually comes with the Ultimate controller was removed and placed inside the Playnix's case. I noticed this because it had become dislodged during transit. I had to open the whole thing up and reconnect it, which isn't too hard to do, but it really does expose the jankiness of a 3D printed case. It's PETG, so it should be able to withstand all of the temperatures that a computer would normally get to on the inside. And I'll give them a lot of credit. It is a very well-designed case. It is extremely tightly packed in there, and it's extremely easy to open. It's a little janky closing it because there's just so much packed in there, but it wasn't impossible. But it is, like, the cheapest plastic you can use, for sure. It doesn't scream quality. If the case files were publicly available, I would say this is a really cool option for somebody who wants to modify or build off of the thing they just bought. Imagine if you want to put in a bigger graphics card. You could just modify the case file and just print one with a spacer for a bigger card. But I don't think these files are publicly available. This case is honestly my biggest hang-up. It's hard to recommend something that's over $1,000 with this sort of build quality on the outside. Especially if you're somebody who would want something as plug and play as this. You probably don't want to tinker around too much, which is why this is in sort of a weird middle area between being user-friendly and also giving you the options to tinker, because it is just a custom PC in there. But it doesn't seem like it's just gonna, like, fall apart on you. It's packed together, but it doesn't get hot, like, at all. The back has all of the I/O you'd need, because it is just a computer, although I wish there was an extra USB-C on the back. This USB-C that's on the side here needs a thinner cutout. Most of my USB-C devices did not fit into this port. I had to use an extension cable for my SSD. It only comes in white right now. They asked me which color I wanted, and I opted for hot pink. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I chose hot pink. That was 5 months ago when I chose. That was a different me back then. Turning it on, you're greeted with the exact same setup that the Steam Deck has. I was staring at my Steam library in about 3 minutes. That's all it took to set up. And that's one of the reasons why SteamOS is so great. Technically, it's not SteamOS. Technically, it's Arch Linux with a game mode. But it looks and acts exactly like SteamOS. After going in there and fixing the dongle, the controller also just connects and works great. Moving over to the desktop mode, you can see the Steam Deck installer. If you've never installed EmuDeck before, go look at a Retro Game Core tutorial. I've done it many times, and it's gone through many iterations over the years, and sometimes it's easier to install than other times that I've tried. This time was a total breeze for most of the retro stuff. Dolphin always requires me to configure the controllers. This is something that should probably be prompted into the EmuDeck setup somewhere. EmuDeck also doesn't like the Eden emulator that much. I find it much easier to just launch my Nintendo Switch games from Eden itself. I add Eden as a non-Steam game to Steam and boot it from the game mode, and everything just works great from there. Obviously, this thing is beefy enough to emulate anything you throw at it. SNES runs great, N64 runs great, GameCube runs with zero stuttering, after configuring the controller, of course. PS2 also runs without a single hitch, after I dropped the BIOS files where they go. Nintendo Switch also runs flawlessly. Perfect Mario Odyssey emulation. No artifacting, no stuttering, not even while compiling shaders. And since you have so much horsepower, I cranked the internal resolution up to 4K. The textures and the fonts and stuff are still pixelated, but the polygons look smooth as hell. And once again, zero stuttering, smooth 60 frames per second, 4K Mario Odyssey. At least I'm pretty sure it was 4K. It looks 4K. It might be 1440p. It's 2 times upscaling, whatever that is. Monster Hunter Rise ran pretty good. This thing never even runs on any of the other devices I try, but I guess this is a little bit more powerful than a handheld. The frame rate slows down sometimes. It usually hovers around 30 frames per second, but that's kind of how it runs on a Nintendo Switch anyway. I also accidentally left this on 2 times scaling, so this was at around 1440p-ish. And I'll tell you, it didn't look like it. I guess this game does not look that good upscaled. But that just means you can really push it if you really want to. You can add mods to this. You could probably unlock it to be 60 frames per second if you try hard enough. Some games have texture packs if you want. This thing can get pretty beefy. Wii U and Xbox 360 were a good idea in concept, but they're a fucking pain in the ass to figure out. I'm not sure why I decided to start with emulation. I guess because this is the EmuDeck machine. Obviously, everything runs great on here, and then you also have the nice emulation station launcher. Obviously, Steam games really shine on here. You can start downloading them just minutes after opening the box. It's Linux, just like a Steam Deck, so it will have similar limitations in some ways. You could also just put Windows on this because this is just a PC. You could also just put Windows on a Steam machine, but I wouldn't hold my breath for how well that's going to work. The Steam Deck's Windows is not a fun experience. Since this is Linux, just like the Steam Deck, you're not going to get like Call of Duty or Destiny or Grand Theft Auto Online, nothing with a serious anti-cheat. But it's way, way more powerful than a Steam Deck, because I don't know if you heard me say this yet, it is just a PC. So if you have any games that have issues with the Steam Deck because of the power of the Steam Deck, you're not going to have any of those issues here. It played basically everything that I threw at it great. Resident Evil 4 Remake, of course, runs great. Since it's SteamOS, shaders get compiled before you start playing, so you don't have to deal with stuttering while the computer warms up to the game. I was getting a solid 110 frames per second at 1080p, and it looks great. At 4K, I was getting about 89 frames per second. Both of those are good options. Running the Cyberpunk benchmark at 1080p got me 135 frames per second, which is a lot. During gameplay, that lowered to about 108 frames per second. This is extremely good performance for a small form factor computer. Almost double what I got on my very expensive laptop. At 4K, I was getting 78 frames per second in the benchmark and 70 frames per second during gameplay. Still really good. Based on what we can see from the Steam Machine playtests, it looks like those guys were locking it at 60 frames per second, and they were only testing it as high as 1440p. So we really don't even know how high the frame rate can go, but it is at least capable of that. For Pragmata, in 1080p, I'm getting a whopping 190 frames, which is a lot more than I was expecting. At 4K, though, it halves, and I would much rather be playing this at 4K, especially at 90 frames. That's pretty damn good. Obviously, it drops down when things happen on screen, but not by much. And that's all with hair quality on high, because this game needs hair quality on high. Marvel Rivals took a long time to compile shaders for some reason. This is processing for so long. Even just booting it up sometimes takes forever. But it's only sometimes. It's not all the time. Sometimes this goes just fine. At 4K, I was getting about 73 frames per second at its highest and 52 when opening a portal at its lowest. And the performance test got me 54 with slight stuttering, so that's not amazing. Dropping it down to 1080p at FSR performance mode, this is all at performance mode, I was getting 200 frames per second at its highest, and when opening a portal, it almost halved. The performance test gave me 90 frames per second. This is at 1080p. Honestly, if I were to play this game on here, I would probably set it to 1440p, and I would have a little touch of frame generation just to smooth some things out. What the hell is this Times Square mode? Is this VR chat? If you'd like to see how the Playnix runs a specific game that maybe I didn't cover, you can go to kb.playnix.io. This is a database for how well games run and at what resolution and frame rate you can expect them to target. They don't have many games on there right now, but I'm sure they'll add some. The only game that I tested that's on this list is Cyberpunk, and that seems to be accurate at least. The Playnix seems to be targeting 4K 60 frames per second for most stuff, just like a console would. But unlike a console, you'll probably have better graphical quality, you'll probably have better lighting and textures and all of that stuff, because unlike a console, I don't know if you have figured this out yet, this is a computer. I like the idea of this, a plug-and-play SteamOS machine that has EmuDeck on it already and a controller connected already. The perfect living room PC. The biggest issue is that this is literally what a Steam machine is going to be. You just won't get that EmuDeck launcher on the desktop already, but that's just a simple download. And the Steam machine will be smaller and presumably have a better case. And let's not forget about the optimizations. Games will be purpose-built for that hardware, and SteamOS will be updated and optimized specifically for that hardware. There's a whole company of people specifically working on optimizing that version of Linux for that version of hardware. There's a lot of reasons to just wait for a Steam machine. That's the device to get if you want a console-like, Steam Deck-like living room PC. The Playnix is for people who want a small PC with all of the components of a small PC that they can upgrade over time, just like a small PC. It's a little computer. It looks like a console, but it's a little computer. And it's got more power. Let's not forget about that. People who like to really tweak their game settings and push them to their absolute limits, but still want something small enough to fit in their living room amongst their consoles, even though it's a PC, not a console. But we still don't even know how big the performance difference will be between this and the Steam machine until the Steam machine comes out. This is more of a computer, whereas the Steam machine is more of a console, but it's also a computer too. I'm trying really hard to find the middle ground here. It's literally just for people who can't wait for the Steam machine. But it's also a cool little indie project. So what do you guys think about the Playnix by EmuDeck and EmuDeck getting into hardware? I'd like to see what they could do next. It seems like this thing is doing a lot better than they were expecting it to. So at least people are very interested. Leave it in the comments below, at me on Twitter, any and all this other social media garbage. Don't forget to check out my video over on youtube.com/BobWulff, where I show you all of the equipment I use to make these videos. And of course, subscribe here and share this video with a friend who's maybe sick of using their PlayStation 5 and wants something a little beefier. Thank you guys very much. Have yourself a very good week.